So we all got together last year to start London Black Atheists. Now, why do we need black atheists after all? You know, atheism is atheism, isn't it? Well, it's just the same way that you might need a gala, you know, for gay and lesbian humanists and so on. So we felt that looking at the situation, there weren't too many black atheists in proportion. It was completely out of proportion to the number of black people that you would expect to see. So if you went to a meeting, you might see one person, or you might not, or you might just see one or two. But you went to another meeting, it will be the same one or two people. So you know, we just thought something should be done about this, and because we feel it's important that the black people who are atheists should come out and show that yes, there are such things in this world as black atheists, and you know that religion, we're not defined by being religious. You know, we know that religion is a overwhelmingly preponderance in the black communities, and there is a lot of religious activity, but nonetheless, we've got to show that there are some black atheists and that we exist, and you know we're growing, and you know you can't deny our existence, and that in future we hope to be a very big force indeed. So we came together for those sort of reasons. It's just as a kind of a support group to help black people to come out. And so we started, as I said, with 4 of us, and today I can tell you that there's 134 of us. So definitely we've made 135, all right. So we've definitely made some progress. And now the Black History Month, obviously, is designed to celebrate the significant contributions of black people, and also to celebrate the struggles that they've had throughout history. Now, it was started by a fellow called Carter Woodson. He was a historian, and he started off as a Negro History Week, but it's since grown into Black History Month, and it was first celebrated in this country. It started in America, first celebrated in this country due to the GLC and 1 or 2 other very important individuals. Now, so we're happy as London Black Atheists to continue this tradition, and we want to today to have some guests discussing important issues such as sexuality, gender, religion in black communities. Now, so I'm just going to now hand over to our facilitator, who is Mr. Ngoma Bishop, and he will introduce the panelists for today's debate. So thank you very much, and I hope you have a great time.
As it stands, and not that someone's going to correct me if I'm wrong, but as it stands, the panelists are BC, Sienna, and Lola. So if I can invite these 3 wonderful people to join me at the platform to the sound of rapturous applause. And very shortly, they're going to be asked to introduce themselves and to say a little bit about their background. BC is going to say give a little bit of background about himself. 5-10 minutes maybe, if you need that.
That probably be too much.
Okay, so please make me feel equally welcome. Thank you very much.
I'm originally from Nigeria. I moved to the UK 6 years ago. I'm a gay man, and I always tell people that my background is quite exciting. just try to make it sound a little bit exciting in a way. So my mom is a Christian, an evangelical Christian, and if you're from Nigeria, you will understand what I'm saying. And my dad is a Muslim. Now, that on its own is a contradiction, because such thing should not happen where I come from. A Muslim should not, most especially a Muslim man should not marry a Christian woman. And this been together for almost 45, 46 years, and they're still together. So I came along. I didn't just come along being gay. I came along flirting with the two religions, in a way. So I can remember I started off going to Quranic school, and I was really devoted to it. But I hated it. I hated it because my imam, the best way to show me that he loves me and he wants me to learn the Quran very well was to always teach me the Quran when it came. So I get beaten in school all day. Then in the evening I'll go to the Quran school and I still get beaten. So it was like going through a lot of pain for me. And along the way came my aunt, who happens to be a Christian, and she would invite us to church on Sundays. And then, at Sunday school, if you know what you've been taught and everything, you get gifts, and then we have sandwich. So as a little boy, I just felt like, why do I want to go to a place where I get beaten Monday to Friday, when I can actually go to a place where I get a sandwich and a gift every weekend? So I revolted, and I started going to church, and that was a big thing in my family, because we're just two boys. My brother stopped doing anything as at that time, so I was the one left doing my dad's religion. Again, because we're boys, carry on the family tradition, it's something that is required of the boys, and so my father was really disappointed. And I can remember many times that he would lock us up. He would lock the house up on a Sunday morning when we're all inside getting ready for church, and then he would go away and come back in the evening, and we wouldn't be able to go to church. But I kept, I was growing up. At that time, I wasn't quite aware of my sexuality. I wasn't really, I couldn't put a name to it, let me say. I knew something wasn't quite right somewhere. I don't know what it was, but I just couldn't put a name to it. But as I grew older, I became quite fundamentalist in my approach to things. I would preach on the bus to school, to secondary school, and people would look at, who is this little boy with a Bible in his hand and telling us we're going to go to hell? And we'd preach on my way back, would give out leaflets on the street. I was spending more time in my Bible. And I think it wasn't until when I was in my final year in secondary school that I watched this film. And if you've never seen it, please don't watch it. It's dreadful. It's called The Burning Hell. I don't know how many people have seen it. If you've never seen it, please don't see it. It's a waste of time. It was it's one of the most powerful Christian propaganda material I've ever seen. It was graphic, it was gory, it was everything bad about the picture of hell, of eternal damnation, and the luxury of heaven. It was just presented to you like this. And I can remember that despite the fact that I've spent all my time, if I've gone over, just let me know. I've spent all my time reading the Bible and being committed to the Bible. At that point that evening in my secondary school, I realized that I'm not worth the kingdom of God. And I broke down and I cried and cried and cried. I was just 17. And the reason why I felt that was because at that time I was coming to understand that I have feelings for men. And it was so obvious that, well, if you have feelings for men, you're going to rot in hell. And maggots will come out of your mouth and so many horrible things will happen to you. And I think I had a secondary, my literature teacher then in school, I told her that I think I have this feeling. She's also a Christian. And she was like, oh, you need to go for deliverance. And that was the very first time as a 17-year-old boy, I went in for exorcism. And it was traumatic. It was one of the most fearful things I've ever done in my life. And when I came out, I felt good with myself because I needed to feel good, or else something is wrong with me again. Because then if you pray for money and money didn't come, it's not that God doesn't care, it's just that you don't have faith, so it's your fault. So I need to feel good so that I don't feel guilty for God not answering me. But this thing wasn't gonna go away. And I remember when I was 18, my friend took me to the first gay party in Lagos. And that for me was a turnaround. So I spent all my teen years being very suicidal. I attempted suicide about 3 or 4 times. I was rescued twice. Going in and out of religion. It wasn't until my late 20s when I came out to myself first, then I came out to the whole world, to Nigerian national television, that I realized that in the scheme of things, as far as religion is concerned, there is no place for me. Now, because I always have this conversation with my mom, and I say, I know how much faith means to you. It is not my place to take that foundation away from you, because that's what you depend on. But as far as I'm concerned, there's no place for me in there. And I'm not going to pretend and assume that there's a place for me. I respect your belief. I respect the fact that you believe there's a God that provides money for you to cook, despite the fact that you work 5 days a week. And the money you have in your bank account is a paycheck. And the woman that sends you food in the market has gone to the farm to get those food because she's planted a seed. And then you've come home to cook with your kerosene that you bought from the station, and then you cook the food, but you still thank God for the food. It was a miracle to have the food on the table, despite the fact that you've done everything you needed to do to have the food on the table. But I respect her faith. I just always try to tell her that she shouldn't, bring it into my life. But the thing about me is that I never, and up until today, I still don't consider myself as an atheist. I see myself as non-religious. I think I've got too many labels in my life. I'm black, I'm gay, I'm a man, what else? There's so many that I need to deal with, and I just felt like, I don't believe there is a God. I don't stop other people from believing or not believing, but I don't see myself as an atheist. I just go about with my daily thing. And that is the way I just deal with it. So I can sit down and have an intelligent conversation, which I think I do sometimes, with Christians or with Muslims, which for me is a good thing because I know the Quran. So you can't play that trick on me. I know the Bible. You can't play that trick on me. And I think most times they don't like to have a conversation with me when it comes to that. And I think we'll talk more about it. Don't let me drag it. So thanks for inviting me once again. Thank you.
I'm going to talk about feminism, and I'm just going to say I was at the London Feminist Conference this morning, and that's where I came from, and I'm going to say part of what I said at the conference. I will say that my road or my journey to atheism actually started through feminism, and I would say that I've always been a feminist. I can't remember when I wasn't. And what started it was the relationship between my parents. I had a lot of questions as a young girl. I just didn't, for whatever reason, I don't know why I was different from other young children, why I was so bothered. I had this burden, I had so many questions. I wasn't happy about what was going on, because I loved my mom so much. And both of my parents were educationists. My dad was a secondary school head, and my mom was a primary school head. And they would both go out to work, and they would come back. And then they would usually come back around the same time. And my dad would go to the living room and would stretch his legs and would be snoozing, and then my mom would be in the kitchen slaving away. She was responsible for, as we know, getting the house in order, looking after the children, cooking everything. And I'm grateful for one thing from about my dad. He allowed me to ask questions, no matter how uncomfortable, no matter how challenging it was to his beliefs, to his authority, to his sensitivity. He will allow me to ask questions, and and he will give me some answers, and I will ask him, why is my mom slaving in the kitchen? Why can't you help her? Why can't you help around the house? And his answers were always on two things: religion and tradition. And I couldn't, even as a young girl, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, I couldn't understand that. I couldn't reconcile the love that I thought my dad should have for my mom, that it should be above everything. And to make it worse, my dad was kind of westernized. So I saw him picking and choosing what he wanted out of tradition and what he wanted out of religion. We were Seventh-day Adventists, and it's one of the, it's as fundamental as you can get. It's a kind of odd religion because it mixed Christianity with Judaism. So we were observing Sabbath, we were observing the dietary rules. There were some things that Adventists were not supposed to eat, like prawns, like fish without scale, and a host of, I think, pigs, pork. But my dad, we bent the rule at home. So we ate like catfish, we ate prawns. My dad didn't observe everything. And I used to ask him that why were we mixing, and I was confused. And he would say to me that, some of these rules were written for health reasons, for the time, for the Israelites at that time, and some of these rules were for them. So, and then I will say to him, I will always bring it back to my mom, that why couldn't you then, if you can pick and choose certain traditions and certain aspects of the religion, why don't you choose the one that will make my mom as equal? And because how can you love someone that you treat less than yourself? And my dad never, I think as I grew up, he found it really difficult to defend his position. But then I remember him telling me when I was like a teenager, maybe about 15, that look, he didn't want to appear weak to other men. He didn't want to appear weak to his family. And so that was when I think I've always questioned religion, but I would say that was, I think that I could attribute my journey to atheism. That was a foundation to it, even though it happened several years after. And part of what I talked about at the conference is Yoruba feminism. I brought it, before Islamic religion came to Africa, before Christianity came to Africa, the status of women, even though in the hierarchical structure, the men, were on top, but then women, it wasn't anything that it became after Islam and after Christianity. Women had a voice. Women had a voice in religious, within religious setting. Women had a voice at home, and they had voice in the community. I'm from the Yoruba tribe, one of the main 3 tribes in Nigeria. And in the Yoruba mythology about the beginning of the earth did not start from the Garden of Eden. It started in Ile-Ife, the capital of, it's still seen as the capital of the Yoruba land. And God sent 7 gods to Ile-Ife to start the earth. And out of those gods, there were Oshun, there were Yemoja, there was Olokun, and there was Oya, and these were female gods, and they had the same status as the men. And in Yoruba religion, the supreme being, Eledumare, is genderless. It's almost, when you look at its characteristics, it's androgynous. And if you we don't have a written history. You will find our history is enshrined in our poetry that are survived until today, and in our proverbs. And you will see the place of women in our poetry, in our proverbs. The mother in my tribe will say Orishabi Yaosi, meaning the most supreme of all the gods is the mother. Mothers have always been the it and all to Yoruba people. And even women that did not have children, in Yoruba tradition, they were still highly regarded. And then the older women get, unlike it is in the West, it's like the older women get in the West, the less her worth is almost like her worth is attribute, the youth. The youth of a woman is glorified in the West. It's not like that. In the tradition, the older a woman gets, the higher her status in the society. And in our political system, you have a king. The kings were almost always, and they are still, polygamous. But then the senior wives, the Oloris, they were part of the political structures. They were part of decision making. And then you had also the, like in the Yoruba kingdom, you have the king, and then you have what we can call ministers. And you have women as ministers, and they were very important. They were Yalode, you have the Yalode, you have the Otun Yalode and Osi Yalode. And because the men in those days, the men were not part of day-to-day life of the villages and the towns. They were away a lot. They would go to hunt, they were at war, they were in farm, and they had seasonal coming home. So women were in charge of the villages and the town. And the Market Women Association was highly regarded. It was the strongest trade union, and it was the strongest political force. And even until now, I lived in Ijebu before I came to England. When market women, when they go on strike, they will bring the town to its knees, and they will cooperate. And so women were highly regarded. They had that status, they had a voice. And then Islam came. Even though the Yoruba people, they didn't really, some of them converted to Islam, but they didn't really, I think most Yoruba did not, in those at the beginning, convert to Islam. And even those who converted will still maintain the traditional religion. So those who accepted Islam fused the traditional religion with Islam. But what happened was, it coincided, Islam, especially when, by the time the European came, it coincided with change in our lifestyle. Men were not as away as they used to be. They became part of day-to-day life of villages and towns. And now that they were living in town and with the women, they found it useful. They found the subjugation of women in Quran, they found it really handy and really useful. And those who know about Quran, I have one or two quotes from the Quran. Quran chapter 2, 2 to 3 says, women are your fields. Go then into your fields when you please. That's one of the influences, Islamic influences that started changing the minds of our men and their attitude towards women. Quran 4:34 says, men have authority over women because God has made one superior to the other, and because they spend their wealth to maintain them. Good women are obedient. You know? As for those whom you fear disobedience, if you fear a woman disobeying, admonish them and forsake them in better path and beat them. And when Christianity came, Christianity too, when it came to Yoruba land, although they introduced education and then they wanted women to be educated, Yoruba women easily, the Yoruba society were adaptable to that. It was easy for them to allow women to have education because Yoruba women have always had career, they've always had trade, they've always been farmers. So it wasn't too, even though some men would not allow their girls to go to school, but a lot of men allowed. What you will find in the Bible, and I'm sure many of us know this, Galatians 3:6. When Eve, when she ate the forbidden fruit, and God cursed him unto the woman, he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow shall you bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. And men were, they quickly adapted to this because it suited them. They are back at home now. Religion gives them the power to dominate and control women. Unfortunately, when colonialism ended and we became independent, those who drafted the Constitution, they drafted secular Constitution. But then, unfortunately, the way religion is in Nigeria now hasn't allowed the secular Constitution to manifest in how it should be. Now we have religion providing education. A lot of the schools in Nigeria now are now by religious, by churches, Pentecostal churches. They even have universities. So through the education system, they are still propagating this. I don't know how to put it. The control of women and subjugating women. Even though you have educated women in Nigeria, strong women, but they are still made to submit to the authorities of men. So that is my history with feminism and the beginning of my journey to atheism.
Hello everybody, my name is Sienna. I would like to thank Lola and Busy for the wonderful introductions. Now I feel rather, how am I going to compete with that? I'll try. So I'm Sienna, and I am, what should I tell you first? Right, so I've just recently turned 22, and I graduated from university studying history. But more interestingly, oh thank you, but more interestingly, I am the founding editor-in-chief of a feminist magazine, a new one, called noflyonthewall.com. And just take note of that because I believe we're going to go strong for a long time if I've got anything to do with it. And the reason I founded that particular e-zine blog is because I would call myself a reluctant everything, quite frankly. I'm always out there, but I've always been against labels. But unfortunately, I've come to learn that there are many on me. And as Bissy is saying, this idea of there are too many labels, unlike Bissy, I've decided reluctantly to just claim all of them, deal with it, and kind of go with all the fuss that comes with it. So, I'm black, woman, a vegetarian, I am an atheist, I'm a feminist. This is just endless, quite frankly, and it confuses everybody and it tires me and I forget sometimes. But yes, reluctantly I decided I'm just going to, I think about 2 years ago, I decided that I'm going to call myself an atheist, because I guess I've been an atheist since I was 15, but I'll go into reasons why I didn't call myself an atheist until until 2 years ago. And about a year ago, I decided to call myself a feminist. And my background now, that's a good way to kind of tie all that together. So, my mum is actually from a Muslim family. And I actually did go through a little Muslim ceremony when I was born. And when she married my father, she turned to a Christian. My mum is interesting because she just believes in God. She doesn't really believe in like a framework of Christianity in any form. So depending on our location in London, she was either Catholic or Church of England. So it didn't really bother her as long as she was praising God. So I went to Church of England school actually from 2003 to 2010. And my family were Church of England until we moved house, and the Catholic Church was nearer, so she was Catholic. So my brother and I and my sister, we went through all the kind of Catholic things that you're supposed to do, and I actually was quite disturbed that they became Catholic. I was kind of like, just about stomach Church of England, but now I'm kind of like, why did I even think that, But anyway, but yeah, so that's the background of my mum. She's an interesting one, and she's always been very allowing. That she's originally from Sierra Leone. She's quite mixed, but she's originally from Sierra Leone for all intents and purposes, and that's an interesting country. The vast majority of people are actually Muslim, but there is a strong Christian presence, and they kind of live together pretty harmoniously. So I find it quite interesting too that the three panelists here happen to be of African origin. Don't know if that was deliberate, but as much as I think being black is always aligned with religion, and just speaking from an African background, specifically being African, is very much like you're African and you're religious. There is really no in between. And I noted right from the start when Clive was giving this introduction, he kept saying coming out as an atheist, and I thought that was really brilliant because if anyone saw my forethought, the first thing I said was I came out as an atheist. It's kind of, I'm a straight woman, but it really did feel like coming out as something, because it's just as bad being gay as it is being an atheist. I suppose for the vast majority of the black community, kind of speaking in that term. But anyway, so I've got all these labels, and when I went to university, I went to Cambridge, and I went to the very first college in Cambridge, founded in 1284 Peterhouse, and that college only started admitting women 20 years, so within my lifetime, 20 years before I got there. And well, I'm a black woman too, so I really wasn't a minority. I was the only black woman in Peterhouse, and I was one of 2 black people in my whole year, and I think we're going on about 400 to 600 people. I was one of 5. So I was in a minority, and during my life really, I've always kind of, my school, so it was a religious school, St. Saviour's and St. Olaf's in southeast London, and I actually think it was like 70% kind of black minority ethnic people, but I always ended up kind of feeling like I was the only person like myself. So all the kind of black girls, it was an all-girls school, they very much were like, Sarah is so white, she's a Bounty, she's an Oreo, she's a Milky Way, so all types of food, and the reason why is because apparently I was black on the outside, but white on the inside. So I spoke well, I wanted to go to Cambridge. I'm an atheist, I liked metal music, not R&B and hip hop. Wasn't really bad to boys, don't know what's that got to do with race, but And there's a lot of things they didn't really understand, so I kind of had this mindset of always kind of being quite different. So when I was 15, it's quite funny, like I guess I wouldn't ever say I've been religious, but when you're a child and whatever, there's no reason to not go with what your parents do. I can't imagine a reason to be like, I'm an atheist at 3. So I was religious, I suppose, we went to church every day at school and did the prayers, and then one day I just stopped singing the hymns. And I was kind of like, it was quite a deliberate act, but I didn't know why I was doing this. And in my RS class, religious studies, this girl called Eleanor, I didn't really like her, but she did one good thing for me. She was like, F this, I am not going to kneel down, because we had to kneel down to, and I was kind of like, why not? She's like, I don't even believe this stuff, I'm just here because it's a good school, like honestly, it was really ridiculous. My parents went to church like 2 weeks before I had to sign in the application. I was like, oh, okay. And then I was kind of like, oh my god, she just did that. So I didn't kneel down either. And then from then I was kind of like, not really sure what's going on here, but I'm not going to say anything to you, I'm just going to kind of keep to myself. And throughout we had more religious studies classes, and at school I'm always the person that would raise my hand first and speak, and everyone would sit there and just assume I'm going to say something, so never say anything. And you know, we were studying Christianity and like Judaism and Hinduism and stuff like that, and there was many Christians in the class and a couple of Muslim girls, and like I just felt the Christians were dominating the conversation. And I was kind of like, excuse me, we're meant to be learning about Hinduism too, and all these kinds of things. They're like, excuse me. And I just kind of really, you know, I really resented that attitude, and I actually think really and truly that's kind of one of the big things I've always like, you know, from then on I kind of realised I've always resented about religion in general, this idea that I know it all and, you know, I have the final word, I have the final say, and then, you know, I really loved my science classes too, and it always made much more sense to me than this deity thing, you know. And yes, I started to take an active interest in all this stuff, and but still I didn't call myself an atheist because I didn't know any atheists. Now I really just think, gosh, I'm black, I must be the only black person, like the only black atheist. Can't believe, you know, if only you guys had started up when I was a child. So I really did go through this whole thing of just like, oh, I must be the only like black atheist on earth, not say anything, something wrong with me. Then I went to university, and yeah, so actually, now here we go. This is when the reluctant atheist had to become the very vocal atheist. I went, in 2011, I spent 7.5 weeks living with the Amish for Channel 4. In America, that's me, yes. And so my mum wasn't really keen on this TV thing, so I kind of went about the process without asking her, because I just wanted something fun to do over the summer. There was really no reason why, and I didn't think I'd get in, and then I got a call from Channel 4 saying, we want to screen test you. So I was like, oh shit. But you know, I was like, I'll go through it anyway. And so again, my mum, really quite, you know, cool lady, really westernised and whatnot, she kind of was like, I'm really upset with you for dragging the whole family on television, but at the same time, if this is the way you're going to find God, then I'm going to, what you're supposed to do. So if this is your way to find God, then let it be. Like, she didn't really know much about the Amish, and I didn't. I deliberately didn't want to research them, I wanted to be surprised, and surprised I was. Or more so they were surprised when they found me. So, poor mother dear let me go on this adventure with the Amish, and she, you know, I returned home and she didn't know what she was going to see on TV, and what she did see, well, you know, and just the concept of it was a social experiment. 6 British teenagers, diverse. I was the only person of colour there, like, diverse in no way, shape or form. I don't know, diverse my foot. But, diverse, we all went there and we represented, it was quite typecast in a way. I was very much the atheist feminist warrior. And I was kind of like, okay, fine, someone's got to do it, I'll do it. Then you had, you know, the boy from Eton, and even though I was a girl from Cambridge, but that really wasn't even a big deal because there was so much else going on with me, and no one really cared about that part. Then you had the Christian feminist Hannah, and then you had sort of lovely but ditzy Charlotte, and then the Camden boy who's from like foster care, whatever, James. We were really good friends, well, some of us. And so we all went out there, and you know, I was told that the whole point was there was a cultural exchange. You know, we are going to go tell them about British culture, good or bad, and just kind of get something from them and they get something from us. No, it was very much a Christian mission. It was very much a mission, in particular, to make Sienna a Christian. And I was kind of like, you're all in on this, what's going on here? And yeah, so I very much resisted saying I was an atheist on TV for quite a long time, but I was getting, you know, it was quite an upsetting experience. Like, there were moments that were good, you know, but it was, I think overall it was quite traumatic actually, because particularly episode 5, which I did take extreme offence to because of the, you know, there are time constraints when you're editing and stuff, but I just thought things were portrayed in a certain way. There was a family, and you know, the Amish are really like nice and welcoming until you talk about important things in life, like being gay, you know, being a woman, religion and whatnot. They literally cannot comprehend that anyone on earth doesn't believe in God. Like, it was a complete shock to them. And you know, after I had time to kind of calm down, I was kind of like, okay, I've got to look at where they're coming from, you know. I am probably the only black person I've ever met. At the time of going there, I was 19, and girls stopped going to school at 13, so no one ever went to university, and they started thinking about their husbands and stuff, and I was like, I'm single, and I've got no plans to have kids anytime soon. They just didn't understand, and I was still in school. So I was at university, I was a vegetarian, they had nothing to feed me, so I lost loads of weight. And I was a feminist, didn't even know what that was. And I'm an atheist. That was by far like, what? And also I'm from a single parent family, but we'll come on to that, because that I actually think worse than the atheism was that, you know, 3 of us were from non-traditional families, they called it, and for the Amish, the family very much represent, like, it's the formulation of the family is like, it mirrors God and the church. So apparently in my family there was no God. Yeah, I know. But so father's relationship with mother and children was Jesus' relationship with the church, looking after everyone, pastoral care, overriding, submitting, that kind of stuff, and they just didn't understand that not only I came from that, but I was functional. They thought I was really dysfunctional, but I didn't believe so, and they really, really tried to make me feel like I had daddy problems and I need to be saved, and this horrible woman, horrible, worst woman I've ever met my whole life, worst human being I've ever met, Christian. She just took a dislike to me straight away, before I even said anything. And I can only imagine, well, I was black, she'd never met that person before. And her daughter, Martha, always used to kind of stare at me. The first minute I walked in, she just, looked at me and I was kind of like, this is going to be an interesting week and a half, isn't it? But, just smiled and pretended that I'm really happy to be here. And then she literally spent breakfast, lunch, dinner just staring at me. Really uncomfortable. Have you ever had someone in a bus just staring at you? So uncomfortable. And one day I was washing the dishes, because I was always washing the dishes, like a slave, literally. People offended that, but anyway. So I was washing dishes with Charlotte, and Martha came over, and I'm really open to questions, honestly, and I understood that I was very different for her. She's only a child. And she was like, Sienna, why are you black? Fair. In all honesty, fair. I was kind of because they don't have the capacity for me to talk about science, literally, the education is not there. So I had to just be God made me this way, essentially. Because I was literally it's really not my place to start trying to teach this little girl atheism. I really don't have time. And not once did I say I was an atheist at this point as well, on TV. So I was kind of this is how I was made, Martha. And she was like, but God, what do you mean? God wouldn't have made black people. I was there's lots of us. I came from a black person. Didn't just appear in your lounge. And she was so confused. And then Charlotte was getting really uncomfortable, weird. And then I started to try a little bit with the science thing, be there's this much pigment in me and there's not very much in you, and it just wasn't working kind of thing. Her mum walked in, so I just kind of left there. And then her mum walked out again, and then she started telling me about this passage in the Bible, which is very controversial because actually I don't really think, basically, it doesn't really exist as such, but there is this belief. She was telling me about the brothers Ham and Shem, that whole thing, and she was telling me that my mum said that, because one minute she said black people don't exist apart from me, then she was talking about Ham and how, we are the cursed people, the bad people and all this stuff, and I was thinking to myself, maybe this is coming from a place someone's done something really awful to her, and they happen to be a person of colour. So I was like, Martha, just explain to me, have you ever really had an encounter with black people? And she's like, oh, I've met lots of black people, and I met lots of them, hordes of them, hordes with sheep cattle. And I was like, okay, and then this conversation had to end there because, Mum walked in, and then what I decided to do, we were in the fields planting seeds, and I did raise it again because it really bothered me, and I wanted to know more, actually. It really bothered me because at that time my sister was a similar age, but I found it extraordinary, and I'm from London, these things don't happen. So I was kind of Martha, I just want you to explain to me, that conversation we started to have before. Can you tell me a bit more about your views on people of colour? She said, I've just never met a good one. I said, have you met many though? She said, no, not really. And and then I said, and then she said to me, oh, because I was really dark out there, it's 45 degrees, 60 degrees, you burn. And she was like, you're not even black. And I was like, what? She said, you're brown. I was like, the thing is, not very many people are this colour. Do you know what I mean? We are different hues. And that, again, was just mind-boggling for her. So I just kept on boggling this little girl's mind. And then she started singing this song about Jesus loving blue and green people and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, Martha, I just don't understand. What is this? Who's told you this stuff? And then she was like, my dad and my mum. And I was like, I should have known this. Of course, it's the parents. You always have to remember this. It's from parents, stuff like that. And then I spoke to her dad about this, and he was saying, when he was younger, his parents taught him the same stuff about black people being really bad and only good for being postmen and slaves and shoe polishers and stuff like that. So they were just confusing this little girl, and I find it really extraordinary. But anyway, then his wife made it her mission to try and convert me. When she saw that I was as solid as a rock, she then had it was an extraordinary moment in her kitchen one day. She was holding a knife too, so I was pretty scared. She was cutting chicken, but I was still scared. She was literally Sienna, right, explain to me why you don't believe in God. And I said, that's really lengthy, I've got the time. And she was like, no, I really want to hear. So I started telling her, I talked about science, and again, she didn't have the capacity to really get it. and not in a patronising way, honestly, like they just don't have that education. And then she was saying, you know what, I think you do believe in God, but you're just denying it. And I went, how does that work? Please, do inform me. And then I started asking, I said, what about people who like are religious but they believe in a different kind of God, and like, or even people who are of the Abrahamic religions but they don't believe in Christianity? She said, look, after she got really angry, so they're going to burn in hell and like all these kinds of things, I was like, oh right, great, like that's, you know, hell sounds like a better place than you're going to heaven. And then she was like to me, look, and these are her words, she said, the path to heaven is narrow and the path to hell is wide. And only a few of us make it, and mostly it's Amish people up in there. And I was just kind of like, this just sums it up, quite frankly. So my mother, essentially, I was gone on, but essentially she thought, you know, me going to the Amish was going to be the thing she couldn't do, bring me closer to God, right? Unfortunately for her, it made me decide to finally use this word atheism. So I came back and it was very much the atheist, and it was on TV. And my mum and I, we don't really like to talk about it because it's always been this thing she would hope was a phase. Because, like I said, my mum is really cool. But, yeah, and there are just a couple of things that are they are like, you know, I guess they are rooted in tradition that is like of an African tradition, that kind of stuff, and religion is very much one of these things. And, you know, kind of rocked her world that I was believing in God. You know, there's a lot of things I've done, and she's been confused, but she accepted that. But the one thing, you know, I finally got back from America and she talked to me, and she said, okay, Sienna, we're going to have a conversation. Tell me why you don't believe in God. And I said everything from, like, the Christian people I've met have been hypocrites and have done terrible things to us and our family, and, like, look at, you know, my dad was horrible. And, you know, I said, look at him, and he called himself a Christian, like, all these things, you know. She said, she really understood, actually. She really understood. She's like, I've been through this, but I'm still here. And I was like, why? You know, and she's literally like, I think she still hopes that that I'll become a Christian. I don't really think she understands I never really was one, but I can't be bothered with that another time. And essentially, one thing is, every year, Christmas Day, I actually still go to church. And we both know it's a fast. Both know it's a fast. Have a really straight face, don't see anything, stand there with a, you know, really angry face. But number one, my mum doesn't ask me for much, ever. She does so much for me. So I always think this comes from the fact that I have been raised in a Christian family. I have to always be remembered that religion has always been a part of my life. And people who say to me, you don't know anything about religion, like, it's not true, because I went to a church thing in school for 7 years of my life, and I guess I was a bit of a Muslim once. But anyway, you know, so religion has always been in my life, and I suppose there is something there, you know, I do have respect for those people because I think of my mum. So, as much as it makes me irate, I go to church once a year because it's the only thing she asked me to do for her. Also, I don't know what else to do with myself for that hour whilst they're gone, quite frankly. So yeah, got you. I'm going to stop in a minute. But essentially, I'm an eclectic one, put it that way. There's a lot of labels that I have reluctantly taken on. And unlike you, though, I guess I wouldn't say feminism was kind of what made me an atheist, but it's very much helped me to understand things and put them together quite nicely. And I guess I'm almost, you know, I'm also the resident feminist here in Florida. So I've just gone on, and I hope I didn't take too long, but I probably did.
Okay, there's three things that we're invited to consider. What I'm going to do, I'm going to read them all out one after the other now, and then we're going to look at them individually. It's probably not possible to separate them all entirely, because like everything in life, they're intertwined. So we'll just go with it organically and see how it goes, unless anybody objects to that vehemently. No? Can we do it that way, yeah? Right. And we could probably slightly redefine the questions as we choose as well, I suppose. Yes? Alright. The first is, should atheists support LGBT religious leaders / clergy? And answer that in whatever way you understand it. The second one is, are secular or religious ethics more advanced? And I take that to mean is one preferable to the other, or is one more logical, or has it, you know, as I say, we understand it as, we answer the question as we understand it. And the third is, can religion be reconciled with sexuality and a feminist position? And I'm sure, irrespective of or sexuality or positions or religious or otherwise beliefs, we can all contribute to all of these things. So you know, I think if it's going to be and I don't know what anyone's views are on anything, apart from obviously the panelists. But if we're going to have a debate and you know, an interesting debate. It probably is going to be useful if people have slightly different positions on things, but I've got no control over if that's the case or not, right? But okay, let's look at the first one. It seems as interesting as the others, and a logical place to start being the first one. Should atheists support LGBT religious leaders / clergy?
All people who suffer discrimination, prejudice and discrimination that is caused by patriarchal religion.
Okay.
It's my
Okay, does anybody want to add to that
and
discussion?
they should explain why. They should know why. They should understand the origins of the rationale of what the patriarchal religions teach with regards to the position of the domination of women by men and marriage, and all that runs from that, everything outside of marriage for the patriarchal religions is sinful and has to be punished. There are a list of punishments ranging from stigma, poverty, unwanted pregnancy and motherhood, forced adoptions, disease, God-given or opposition to man-made ways of avoiding disease or pregnancy. So there's a whole range of people who are affected throughout the world with those religions. They have inculcated their ideas into our cultures, and because of the domination and the advantage that that has given to men over and above their natural superiority in terms of physical strength, has dominated between religion and state and the political aspects of religion. So they have worked like a partnership made, a marriage made in heaven, if you like, for controlling people and running a society in the way that societies are run today.
Okay, I think that's fairly clear. Before I come to the panelists, so I'm sure we've all got things to say to add to that. Are there anybody with either a supporting view or a counter view that might want to make a contribution at this point at the end over there? I see one, two hands. We go for that for now. We see how we go.
Well, I just feel there's a contradiction in atheists supporting any religious leaders. Why do we have to support them? I would suggest to people who are rejected by religious institutions to get out of there. What's the point of us supporting a religion which discriminates?
That's a valid question. I'm sure someone will address that.
Could people say their names perhaps? I'm really sorry, but then we can perhaps come specifically to people. Sorry, may I ask what your name was? Sue. And sorry, may I ask what your name was?
My name is Deep.
And I don't know what your name is, David, so can you introduce yourself?
I'm David Colgan. Right, slightly disagree with Deepa. I think it's important that because the majority of people in this world profess to have a religious belief or a God, we in the secular society are not against people worshipping per se, but we need to, in order to change the way this world thinks, we have to tell them that, secularism works for them than, say, the Catholic Church or Mecca works for them, because Mecca and the Catholic Church are fundamentally very old organizations that have never really changed, and they want to keep their power within the whole biblical or Islamic domain. But secularism is about allowing people to form those ideas, and there's a lot of people within the religious sphere who see what's going on in their communities and see how damaging it is, and they want to move away from all that backwards, medieval kind of thinking and want to push their ideas into the more progressive world, if I can use a more modern type thing, a beneficial world than that. most people understand the science, most people understand modern ethics and stuff, and they want to change the ideas within the contemporary world that they live in. So I think we're not against people worshipping, but we're fundamentally against the idea of religion being the fundamental thing as a basis for mankind to live their life.
When you say we, who do you mean by we?
Secularists.
Okay. All of secular.
Secularism, humanism and stuff like that, because we can include everybody, no matter, we can include, and because we're fundamentally all human beings, we all have the same wants and needs.
You mean, but that's your view, that's what...
Oh, okay, yeah, it's my view.
Okay.
We all have the same needs, and our constitutions and our secularism and like the idea of human rights, which is becoming a big buzzword around the world, must be the basis for that, and not what comes out of the Quran or the Bible or whatever book that can just be chosen on a particular day, when they feel like it. It has to be it.
Right. I'm going to go back on here simply because you did raise, so I know you want to respond, and I'd possibly like to one or two other people before I'm just interested in knowing whether...
I just wanted to clarify, all atheists I would expect to be secularists.
Okay.
But not all secularists are atheists. There are plenty of people a few people in the church who basically think that the church should be disestablished, but only because they want the state off their back and don't want any point in that. But there's a very big difference between accepting people's right to believe whatever they want to believe, just as they are it's acceptable that they do anything else within the privacy of their own homes in consensual relationships. But that is very different to accepting the ideas that they are preaching and bringing into the public space through our politics and law and social policy.
I think we need to be very careful the way we put our argument forward. Because the thing is, people like me, I remember clearly where I refused to identify myself as an atheist. And I've written about this, I've spoken about this several times, and I said I do not want to leave a militant fundamentalist group to get into another militant fundamentalist group. So what's the point? Because what I'm running away from is that I do not want to live my life in hate. And the moment I'm being structured to say that, I cannot deal with this person because this person has got a particular label or an identity, then I'm actually reinforcing in a different framework, an institution I'm running away from. And like I said earlier, and everybody have said it, I've got a load, permit me to use the word, shitloads of identity that I'm trying to deal with. And within that framework, how many of this collective, how many of these layers of identity do I want to hate about myself or in other people? And I think, you said it quite well, it's about the issue of human rights. I have so many gay friends. I still don't understand, but it is not in my place to discover them, who are either Muslim or Christians, and they're comfortable within that framework. Now, for the fact that I see myself as a free thinker in a way, does that mean then that I should disconnect from them because they have a religious base? No, that should never be the basis for the fact that somebody believes in something. Because to choose not to believe is a belief. And we can have this conversation any other day. The fact that you choose not to believe is a belief.
No, it isn't.
And that is why I said, excuse me, and that is why I said we can have this conversation in another, because you believe not to believe. For every day you do not believe, it's because you believe not to believe. And this is a conversation we can have any other day.
The meeting was supposed to be about LGBT
No.
and atheism.
What I'm trying to say is, the question is, should atheists support LGBT religious leaders? And for me, I think you should.
Yeah, of course.
And that is
church leaders.
No, and so don't tell them, because like she was saying, why should they stay in an establishment that doesn't support them? We should not forget that not everybody are emotionally strong enough to leave a particular institution. All we can do is, if they find that framework convenient for them, for as long as they can find it convenient for them. As a friend, as a family, the support is what we can give to them. And that support should not take away from them until we are ready to give them a base of support, what they consider as support. And I'll give you an instance. When I was leaving Christianity, I had nothing to go back to. And that was why I would go out and I'll come in, I'll go out and I'll come in. Because there was no structure for me to go back into. So when I get into a process of questioning everything around me, it still boils down to the earth was created in 7 days. You know, man have to be over woman and all this kind of things. Until when I started reading, until when I started questioning things around me, like Lola said, until when I started reading alternative books, and I started questioning that, okay, if indeed God created the world, why did he put the light before the sunshine? That doesn't make sense, because basically sunshine gives us light. So why was there light before sunshine? So no, that doesn't make sense. And why did God tell, I don't know whether it was Cain or Abel, that mankind will raise their sword against you, when there was no mankind, because it was just Adam and Eve and then they have children? Who are going to be this mankind that will raise their sword against him? And I started questioning the basis of the Bible. And I put this across to my friends and I said, you know, something is wrong with the history of the Bible. Because if God is condemning a man and saying that you're going to get punished by another group of men, who are this group of men when they don't exist?
Okay.
No, sorry, just
don't be sorry.
No, let me just. So we need. What I'm trying to say is that if somebody finds a comfort in a faith and they need our support, we should not say because they have a faith we will deny them that support. Because the danger is that people like me who are out there, who struggles with the fact that I am continually seeing a group of increasingly militant atheism, who sees anything in Christianity and Islam as completely bad, will continue to argue with myself, because I have a Muslim father whom I love, I have a Christian father who I love. For the fact that I don't practice their religion does not make them less of a human, does not make them stupid or dumb.
Assume that just because if you're an atheist, I don't consider myself an atheist because I haven't really thought about it actually. I consider myself a humanist too, and to us, whether the question of God is actually immaterial. You know, we believe in human beings, in humanity. We don't need to believe in a God to tell us how to behave and how to live our lives. So, you know, and there's an assumption, and that mostly comes from the church and from religious organizations, that atheists are full of hate. Yeah. That's completely untrue. And that's what frightens people. And that's why, like you said, you had to come out, because you were afraid to say that, because people assume that you're full of hate. That's really wrong.
Can I say, in response to this, in my experience, being an atheist in the UK, I found, contrary to what you are suggesting about atheists, I found atheist humanist group to be embracing of all, regardless of you know, because we don't believe that God has dictated how we should live, because we don't believe that God says you cannot be this, that you cannot be gay, that you cannot, that gender is fixed, because our approach to understanding life is through science. We are embracing of everyone and loving. Unfortunately, we invited David Makiela to be on the panel, and he is a gay Anglican clergy, and it was at the last minute that he cancelled, because the question that I wanted to ask him, was how do you reconcile what the Bible says about your sexuality? When I was a Christian, bringing that to feminism, there was a time I was able to, it was a struggle, it was a lot of struggle, I must say, that I tried to reconcile Christianity with feminism, and I was able to find passages in the Bible about love and about equality, even though I don't think I managed it well. So it would have been nice today if we have, because we did invite people from religious groups. We invited feminists, Christians, and LGBT Christians, and they all said they would come, but they didn't turn up. It would have been nice to hear from that side how they are able to reconcile religion, the religion that speaks against them so much, that how do you find yourself within these groups? If you have gay Christians and gay Muslims, what are their explanations for belonging in the?
I think the whole explanation, I don't know, somebody said something about the whole idea of knowing. Okay, it was yesterday at an event I organized, put together, called Rainbow Intersection, and we were looking at the so many intersections in just one person, and how all these intersections play out, and you cannot remove one intersection from another, because then if somebody has got the intersection of being black and being gay and then being a Christian or being a Muslim, if that person believes so much in that, in the moment you remove one of these layers, you're removing the complete person. And so it's about letting that person know how to deal with it. And we had a Muslim panelist yesterday who was saying that, I look deep in the Quran, and there I've questioned that if this Allah was the first paragraph of the Quran says, the Allah, the most merciful, how can the most merciful at the same time be most damning? Then something is wrong. And he said, I looked through the Quran. Though the Quran never mentioned homosexuality, but I looked through the Quran, and there was never a place where the Quran says, I will go to hell. Now, there's something between, and something we need to understand. There's a difference between the religion and the power of manipulation in the hands of men. If you understand what I mean. So there's religion. The religion is there. But can we diffuse these things? And I think that is what people who are LGBT and religious, that's what they've been able to do, to say that, it is not about who is interpreting what the Bible is saying to me. It's about the implication I'm getting, or the interpretation I'm getting from the Quran and the Bible on a personal level. And they have been able to separate these two, to be able to create a space for themselves within the framework of religion.
Okay, I think you've made your substantive point. I know there are others who want to speak on.
Should atheists support LGBTQ religious leaders, clergy, in what? I just think it's so vague, and obviously it's fair enough to add on, and actually I think that's what just happened there. It was quite vague. So, should atheists support LGBTQ religious leaders, clergy in the church? That is a difficult one, quite frankly, because I understand.
They should be supporting us.
They
should be supporting us.
You get an opportunity to come in.
Sue. Hi, Sue. So, I liked, I think what I heard from you, in my mind, was slightly contradictory, because on the one hand you were saying, atheists should support everyone, which I'll come to that.
Sue, please.
Sue,
I didn't say that.
No, but please,
please say what you were.
Hold on, Sue.
Oh, okay, no, she did just correct herself.
Wait, I understand that. But what I will do, when a person is making a contribution, I will not have anyone else make even a correction until they're finished, because we have chaos.
Okay, so thank you for correcting me. I'm sorry that I misconstrued what you said. Okay, so in that case, I do think atheists, feminists, human beings should support people who are being oppressed. But I always think that's kind of a separate issue to the actual question here, because you did say that religion is patriarchal, which I believe it is. And, sorry?
Not all religions.
I believe that religion is patriarchal. And the thing is, about religion being patriarchal, is that, especially when we're talking about Abrahamic religion, I'll talk about those, that's what I know. I'm not a Hindu, I'm not a Buddhist, I'll talk about that framework if you will allow me. Okay, so this kind of religion, this structure, okay, it sort of exhumes an hegemonic masculinity. And a hegemonic masculinity does not include LGBTQ people, it does not include gay men, okay? So, I do believe that the idea of someone being an LGBTQ religious leader, it confuses me, however, so that, it does confuse me. However, as Bissy was saying, although I can't see how it works, but I'm actually not LGBTQ, and I really, really have no right, I feel like I have no right to ever say to someone, to tell them how to think. That's what I don't like about religion. I don't like people telling me how to think. Okay? I think it's good to have discussion. When we're in debate, I can say to them, well, I don't get what you're doing. It would have been quite nice if those people had arrived, because I would have really liked to hear what they've got to say. So I don't understand how it can be brought together, but at the same time, I don't believe that it's my place to ever say to someone that you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. If they found a way to reconcile religion, it confuses me, but they found that way. And as Bissy was saying, I think Lola, you put it perfectly. I personally don't. There are fundamentalist, militant atheists who, and the same as feminists, who shut people down, who don't let you speak. If you're not using the correct language that they don't like, they'll tell you off, and that's the end of the discussion. Okay, there are those people. So I think it'd be wrong to sit here and completely say, oh, we're all like loving, and no, like we don't. There is a thing we don't believe in, and sometimes when you don't believe something, it gets quite heated. Yeah, like you can see here. Okay. However, at the same time, I think, as again Lola said perfectly, the idea that because we don't have all these rules about what we can believe and who we can like oh man, I really like you but you're gay, like I can't like you because I really believe every single word of the Bible. That's not how stuff runs in atheism, you know. And again, I really like labels. Like I said, I'm a reluctant atheist. I've had to just because it kind of works for me. It kind of works. I look at atheism as literally the definition atheist without religion. That's it for me. Like it's without religion. And the idea of this word belief, I guess, you know, we all kind of were a bit like, I can understand what you were saying, but I think a better term might be ideology, because I do think atheism is an ideology. I don't like ideology, but it is. You don't believe in something. Well, I think it's an ideology, but in this very sense that it's you don't believe in something, so you've got an explanation as to why you don't believe it, like we believe in science, we believe in that kind of stuff. That's my opinion, it's a sort of ideology. Same with feminism is a sort of ideology, you know? And so I'm not for any fundamentalism, I'm not for atheist fundamentalism, I'm not for religious fundamentalism, nothing like that. So in the sense of this question, back to the question specifically, should atheists support LGBTQ religious leaders? Support in the sense of, you know, I don't need to hate them. Why on earth would I hate them? Like, fine, you know. But I suppose if you don't support the church, even, you know, I think you mentioned, I heard, it was really like over the yelling and stuff, but you said something, someone said something about we don't support church leaders, but what if, I wanted to just throw it back to you, and what if it was an LGBTQ church leader though, like, do you know what I mean? And this is nothing, I'm going to bring the word to
if they would be as incorporative of us as humanists,
yeah.
then of course, I'm willing to work with everyone,
okay.
But our exclusion from any charity work or
yeah.
anything like that is profound because of
yeah, no, that's
the religious organisations.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
so
we're willing to work with religious groups
yeah.
if they're keeping it to a secular foundation for their people and not indoctrinating the people they're helping at the same time.
I totally hear you. And the same, but I always think same, like you know, an atheist trying to indoctrinate. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the whole thing. As Bissy said, we've left that. Like, I don't want anyone telling me what to do. Like, atheist or not atheist, you know. I'm really sorry. I'm going to wrap up. There was really some way I wanted to finish off. Okay. So I think, yeah, again to Bissy's point, this idea of like layers and stuff like that. So, and intersections. Religion is an intersection, and this is a really big, you know, buzzword in feminism at the moment and kind of sociology. You know, you've got feminism, and you've got within that, you know, intersection of gender, class, race, religion, culture, these kinds of things. Okay, and you know, sexuality. And if you are an LGBTQ religious leader, your intersections, amongst many things, include religion and your sexuality. And if you can find a way, I've got a poem here. I want to just quote it. Audre Lorde. She is a lesbian feminist, like warrior, revolutionary, amazing woman. She's amazing. And the final stanza of her poem, Who Said It Was Simple, because none of this is simple, she says, but I who am bound by my mirror, as well as my bed, see causes in colour as well as sex, and sit here wondering which me will survive all these liberations. So this idea of we're fighting for one thing, and if it doesn't include something else, then, you know, like you can't just keep stripping away from people and not looking at them as a whole. So, you know, LGBTQ religious leader, I'm not going to hate them because they're a religious leader, and I'm not going to support, you know, something very, like, I'm not going to support something just because they're LGBTQ, do you know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing, like, I'm not going to be tokenistic, like, they're a person, if they're a church leader doing something I don't like church leaders doing, then they're a church leader doing it, do you know what I mean?
I think they do.
My name's Kieran, and I think that the question is a little bit flawed when it uses the word support, because I think you really need to define the word support before you go down this road. I mean, a lot of these Abrahamic religions, they prey on the poor and they rattle their tins and they try and get the last cent out of their pocket, and I'm not going to support anything like that. So I think that. Does it mean that you know, we should challenge them? For sure, but I think the word support, I mean, I'm not going to support, in my interpretation of the word support, any of them.
Fine. I think, did you indicate you wanted to speak a little earlier, or did you not? Was it yourself? Sorry.
Start your name, please.
Oh, Fiona. I agree with Kieran actually, because I see religion maybe in a different way. Because I think people, everyone, regardless of what they believe, they're trying to make sense of the world, and it's not about believing in God or like in whatever. Because I know I have lesbian friends and they're Christian, but it's not really about the God. It's about finding their belonging. Like it's like a family for them, and so I kind of see it. I don't find it difficult to separate why someone would have like a sexual orientation and can be religious as well, because it's much more than just worshipping a god, and most religious people don't really believe everything in that religion. They kind of pick and choose what they want, so it's not like every Christian is like holy, but yeah, I think the question is a bit flawed. Like, support in what way? Like, if somebody needed help, I wouldn't ask them like, are you a Christian? Are you a Muslim? I would tell
If they fall over in the street, don't check what religion they are.
I think hold on. Which is why at the beginning I said that we kind of answer the questions we interpret. I mean, what we have to bear in mind is there's no such thing as a perfect question, right? And we're at a starting point. So, I mean, I thank the organisers for putting the question together. It's for us to make what we can of it, and perhaps when we discuss the same issue another time, we might phrase the question slightly differently.
The reason why we put that question is because I think it's important that wherever we go, we support free thinking everywhere. So if it means that someone in the LGBTQ has those doubts within the realms of their religion and say, why am I supporting? I go to church every day and yet I do everything that's asked of me, but yet I did the Holy Communion and I said I prostrate myself before Allah 5 days every day. But then they say that God is forgiving, and yet when I say this to, you know, that imam or the Catholic priest or whatever, they then turn around and they hate me. Why is this? And we've got to support their ability to think freely so that they can then move on, as it were.
Okay. I think I'm not sure if that came over in the question, but I understand. Okay.
I don't think the question is flawed. I think I don't know how many of us have actually got a question with us. Maybe we don't really get it. What the question says is, should atheists support LGBT religious leaders? Now, we're not talking about religious leaders. We're talking about LGBT religious leaders. That's what the question is. Now, yes, I can understand, like you said, so what is support? In what area, what kind of support are we saying? Now, let me give you a brief overview. For you to be an LGBT religious leader, it means that you've taken yourself from the dogma you talked about in the religious setting to a different framework when your understanding of religion and the whole context of religion, it's extremely liberal. So it is not dogma. So you cannot have, excuse me, because the point is, the moment you see religion itself as dogma, there's a problem. I'm sorry. I'm not religious anymore. But the moment you see that religion has now moved on from what it used to be, then there's a problem. For the fact that people read Bible does not mean that so many people have not transformed Bible to their own reality of today. So many people have done that. You know, when we look at the whole conversation around the burqa wearing, there's so many Muslim ladies I know that are my friends who've got painted nails, will never cover their heads, will go around in trousers or in miniskirts, will do what every other person would do, and they still tell themselves that I'm still Muslim. Should I not tell them that because somebody is wearing burqa, then I'm going to classify all of you in the same realm? Some people have moved on from their own personal interpretation of what this religion is about, and that is what I'm particular about. If somebody has moved on from the supposedly dogmatic understanding of being sadistic about religion, that person should be embraced. It is not until that person says, okay, I'm completely dropping this so that I can be part of it, and that is when we will reach out. And that is what my problem is.
Okay, that's understood.